Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today we're going to be talking about studs from week 2. We're going to be talking about duds and then our predictions for week 3. With us today is Adam from the IDP Show, who happens to be a co-owner of the show. Adam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Fellas, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I love what you guys are doing. And it reminds me a lot of us when we got started. So keep going, keep spreading the good word about IDP. And again, thanks for having me.
Hike!
All right, so why don't you kick it off there, Adam? Who was your stud from week 2?
All right. For my stud, I'm going with the current Edge 7 on the season, Mr. Carl Granderson. In week 2, on 29 pass rush snaps, Granderson picked up 6 pressures, 1 sack, 2 tackles, 1 forced fumble, which worked out to 18.8 points in Big 3 scoring. And in week 1, he added 5 pressures, 1.5 sacks, and that was good for 22.1 fantasy points. So Granderson's 11 pressures on the season are 4th most in the NFL behind only Aiden Hutchinson, TJ Watt, and Micah Parsons. His 89.9 overall PFF grade is 7th best among all edge rushers, and his 21.8% pass rush win rate ranks 9th. I know the O-line and QB schedule has been ideal with Tennessee and Carolina to start, but it's not like Granderson is coming out of nowhere. He was quietly very strong the second half of 2022, averaging 12.8 points per game from weeks 10 through 18. That was 30th among all defensive linemen, so that includes edge rushers and DTs. He also graded very well, finishing out 2022 with an 80.4 PFF grade. That was 23rd best among edge defenders, and his 2022 win rate was a respectable 11.5%. So Carl Granderson, I think we got to give the guy a little bit of respect. He has started off the year on fire, and I mean he's getting tons of snaps. It's him and it's Cam Jordan, and that's it. You know, those are the studs on that defensive line, and it's nice to see Granderson kind of ball out with the opportunity.
Go ahead, Joe. This is your victory lap right here.
Yeah, man. That was all music to my ears. You know, I got this guy in free agency in our Dynasty Salary Cap League with IDP. And, you know, I remember Steve was like, man, why do you want this Carl Granderson? And I was just like, you know, I was looking at the stats from how you finished, like you said, and thought he had potential. And, you know, Marcus Davenport was out of the way. He was going to start alongside Cam Jordan, and very pleased with the way he's balled out so far.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, you made a very compelling case for one, Mr. Granderson. I was a little bit leery, and I disrespected his name. So early on here, I did it, you know, with Isaiah Foskey getting drafted in the 2nd round. What did that kind of say? They also drafted Peyton Turner really high. So they had a lot of different type of defensive linemen that could be used. I didn't know if, you know, Granderson would be the guy, but he's looked pretty good. Like you said, though, 2 easy offensive line so far. So we'll see if he can sustain it. But if nothing else, I mean, are you starting him every week? I guess if let's say you're starting, you have 2 defensive end and a flex. I know you both like him. Do you start him every week?
Probably not in that setup, you know. Now, I'm in a lot of those leagues where we start like 4 defensive linemen. And in those type leagues, yeah, he's going to be that 3rd or 4th, probably that 4th. But I mean, I understand being skeptical, and it's not like I'm head over heels here, because I mean this guy was undrafted, you know. I mean he's not like he has high capital. I mean he was an okay athlete. I think he was a 7.7 RAS. That's relative athletic score. Really good size, 6'4", 254. So I mean, you know, nothing super elite or anything. Doesn't have that high draft capital, but he's in a really good situation there in New Orleans. In Dynasty, I mean, I would think obviously he's like this is a prime sell candidate. But I mean, in redraft, I would not be surprised if we look up and Carl Granderson finishes within the top 24.
Yeah, I mean, I started him in my flex last week, Steve. You know, we'll see depending on the matchup if he's going to be there in every week. But injuries happen and things like that, and I've got a couple other defensive ends to consider, and sometimes put a linebacker in that spot. But if the matchup's right, I have no problem starting Granderson in my flex spot there.
I don't know if this off the top of my head. From a dynasty standpoint, I'd be very curious as to what his contract situation looks like, because in the event that it's a short-term deal or maybe it's a free agent next year, I'd be slightly concerned depending on where he goes.
He's a UFA in 2024, so he will be a free agent. He is playing for that bag, and I mean, he's probably going to get one if he keeps this up. I mean, he's off to an amazing start.
Yeah.
That
equates cash out, Steve.
That equates to me that I'd be selling him big time. That's my stand on that. I don't know. There's a couple instances there that I'm a little leery about, but maybe I'm just being completely disrespectful.
I don't know. I mean, it's a tough situation. It's again undrafted, but those advanced metrics via PFF are really good. And we have seen a lot of these free agent signings work out lately. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think that, again, I'm not trying to go out of my way to buy this guy, but I'm also, I'm not casting him aside or just getting rid of him for a fifth-round pick or even really a fourth-round pick. I think he could be an asset for you.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he is like this as far as playing style. I think best case scenario for him is like Trey Hendrickson, right? Because he had like a breakout, went to be a free agent, signed a very good deal with Cincinnati, but it was very low guaranteed, very incentive based, because they're like, can this guy actually perform? And he's actually done really, really well. I don't know what his draft capital was with Hendrickson. I know he kind of like came out of nowhere and did really, really well. That to me would be my hope for him. I think that's the ceiling.
Yeah, I like it. And Henderson was also there in New Orleans, so that's a nice little comp.
Mm-hmm.
I take it that was an intentional comp there, huh, Steve?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Sneaky boy.
Yep. Yeah, you got to watch out for him. He's sneaky. But my stud from week 2 rather is defensive end Alex Highsmith. Ended up with 5 solo tackles, 2 assists, a sack, tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits, forced fumble, an interception, pass deflection, and a touchdown. If you watched this game last night, you saw him start off right off the bat, first play of the game with a nice pick 6, and then later in the game he forced a fumble that TJ Watt was able to scoop and score for a touchdown as well. In this game, he had a pass rush grade of 88.1 and a win in pressure rate of 15.8. I think this could be more to come out of Alex Highsmith. He's the running mate alongside of TJ Watt there, another dominant player. He showed out and really performed well last night.
I love it. Alex Highsmith is such a stud. And there was a lot of people that I think were, I don't know, a little scared of Alex Highsmith this last year, this offseason. Because, I mean, we did a ton of these best ball drafts, and Alex Highsmith was being drafted very high. And, I mean, like, he wasn't making it really outside of the third round. So, I mean, he was going as, like, edge 12, I think, somewhere in that range. But a lot of people have been kind of skeptical and I don't know, kind of slow to embrace Highsmith, sorry. But that dude's a baller. I mean, you heard last night TJ Watt after the game said it was a pleasure to play alongside, an honor and a pleasure to play alongside Alex Highsmith. So just you love the vibes that are going on that defense. That defense is so sick too, elite. And yeah, I mean, he's just in a great situation, but the dude's actually good. Really, really good tackle floor. And then, yeah, I mean, the sack upside is real. I think we can expect another 10, plus sack season from Alex Highsmith. And TJ Watt, just side note, my Lord, what a beast. He's just, I mean, if you drafted TJ Watt in your IDP leagues, like, you're probably 2-0. And you're probably easily 2-0. I mean, the guy is just a cheat code. I mean, that's the health has always been an issue with TJ Watt, but I mean, there's no one in IDP with a better or greater upside than TJ Watt.
Oh yeah, it's funny you said that. In our league, there are many who refer to TJ Watt as the cheat code because he's unbelievable. I mean, the guy, he is worth every penny if you have him on your roster because he's Justin Jefferson level of changing the tide of a game on the defensive side. I mean, he just is really that valuable. As far as Highsmith goes, I think he's really underrated. People think about Watt, they don't think about Highsmith. And honestly, if my memory serves me right, I believe he was a third-round pick out of Charlotte, some Division III school or something like that. So coming in, people were like, I think they had Bud Dupree at the time. This guy could be turn into something. I'm a firm believer. I don't know about how you guys feel. I'm a firm believer that there are teams with infrastructure based on their coaching staff. They just know how to develop certain position groups, and the Steelers know how to develop edge rushers. They're great at it. They just produce people time and time again. Bud Dupree left, Highsmith plugged right in. So to me, and you saw that he got the extension. That was key to me, that Highsmith got paid. He's locked up long-term. Watt is continuing to perform at a high level. I'm very curious. I don't think it's going to change anything. Nick Herbig, though, has showed flashes. I could see him being that next guy that rises up, but he could be the odd man out just because Highsmith and Watt are so good. It may be an injury that forces him more on the field, but they're both locked up long term, so he might just be a rotational guy.
Yeah, that's a good call. He looked great in the preseason, and he was someone that we were really excited about coming into. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. They seem to do a really good job of developing those edge guys there, kind of similar like how they are with receivers. And it's just a great environment. I mean, learning alongside TJ Watt and watching that dude work and just be a professional. And Cam Hayward, same thing. Just having two mentors like that is just huge for someone like Alex Highsmith. And also, I mean, he kind of, like you mentioned, he gets kind of forgotten about in media, but also, like, I think kind of in game plans, like he's the guy that you're going to focus on TJ Watt first. You're going to have to figure him out, and then Highsmith second, Cam Hayward second. But it's always TJ Watt first. So yeah, I love Alex Highsmith, man. Great player.
So my stud from week 2 is safety Grant Delpit, former second-round pick out of LSU, whose season was cut short in his rookie year after tearing his Achilles. And I was pretty concerned about him moving forward. He essentially was an injury redshirt. But I believe that we may be on the cusp of a true breakout with him. According to Pro Football Focus, Delpit is ranked 3rd in safeties according to their grades at 92.2, and that's all-encompassing. He's high at every level: run defense, tackling, coverage, all those he's great at. And for safeties, for that high floor, we want to see if they really play in the box. Well, he ranks 5th with box snaps with 53. In his first game, he had 8 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and a QB hit. And then in prime time against the Steelers, he had 6 total tackles, an interception, and a fumble recovery. He's really progressed every season of his career, and he's entering into a contract year. You know what that means, Joe. I think he's going to ball out so he can cash out. So I think that we're looking at a really, really stud safety. I think he's going to be good the rest of the way.
Another great call there. I mean, also he's got questionable linebackers in front of him, So, yes, I think he's going to get a chance to soak up a ton of tackles. But you're right. I mean, 53 box snaps, also 21 in the slot, also 3 on the line. So, I mean, those are also, that's also lining up closer to the line of scrimmage. So, I mean, he's going to be in on a lot of these tackles. And, yeah, that's probably some of the best usage you'll see out of a safety. So I love Grant Delpit. I mean, we're seeing him ball right now. He's already got 15 tackles. It says here on PFF.
Yeah, I think
and they're
something
usually
around
a
that.
little stingy with their tackle numbers. So yeah, Grant Delpit, he's likely going to finish as a top 12 safety this year, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good call, Steve. I mean, just watching that game, you just saw number 22 just flashing all over the place, tackles in the backfield, and just going sideline to sideline. He was a guy I was intrigued in different IDP leagues, and he's really shown out this far.
Well, honestly, once John Johnson left, I mean, they signed that big contract to him, decided to cut him and get rid of him. I wondered what they were going to do to replace him. And, they didn't, to my mind, they didn't really, they got that safety from the Chiefs. But at the end of the day, Delpit's really taken over.
Yeah.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So heading over to the duds. Adam, what do you got for your dud from week 2?
All right. For my dud, I've got Kayvon Thibodeau. Recorded a QB hit in week 2, and that was literally the only stat we got from Kayvon. So if your league does not reward for QB hits, he probably put up a goose egg for you. In week 1, he collected 4 tackles and just 3.5 fantasy points. So he has been awful to start the year. And this was someone that everyone was pretty much pegging as a breakout. Me as well. So it's not great. We don't like it. The PFF stats also are not looking good. 52.4 overall PFF grade. He has just 2 pressures on 43 pass rush snaps and an eye-opening 2.6% pass rush win rate. So not great, boys, but I think it's okay. I think it's still early. The week 1 matchup against Dallas, I think we can just kind of throw that out the window. That whole team was just not ready for that game. Week 2 was definitely disappointing. That was a good matchup against Arizona, but that's how it goes sometimes, and especially at the edge position, a position that's so dependent on sacks. Sometimes these guys just get off to slow starts. I still believe in Kayvon. I still believe in that Giants defense. And that Giants team, I know they've kind of struggled to they've struggled to start the year, and I think they're going to bounce back. I think the entire team bounces back, and I think Kayvon's a big part of that bounce back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the other tough thing is, the Giants really haven't been able to play with the lead. Got the new D coordinator with Wink Martindale coming over. First year there with the Giants. I think that has an adjustment period and just trying to figure things out as well. Like you said, I mean,
Is it a second year?
Is it a second year?
Yeah, year 2.
Sorry about that. Well, year 2 of Wink Martindale's system here with the Giants. But I think mostly for the pass rushers, it's easiest to get out and attack when you have the lead. And Giants have been playing for behind. Disappointing matchups and disappointing team thus far.
Yeah, I've been surprised by Thibodeau not playing as well. I don't know about you, Adam. I know Joe knows this full well, which he thinks is wrong, which so far it looks like I'm wrong. I actually had Thibodeau rated higher as a prospect than I did Hutchinson. It was close, but to me, as far as the draft class is concerned, I think in my rookie rankings, I want to say I might have had Thibodeau 2, Hutchinson 3. I'd have to check back on that, but I definitely had them over him. So I was expecting Thibodeau to be a better prospect. Obviously, he had the MCL injury, I believe, in late his rookie year, and after that, he kind of had to get his legs under him and do well. My one question to you, though, is, and I guess to both of you, is do you still start Thibodeau, or are you benching him at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on your options. But I think you have to. I don't know. That's tough, man. I mean, you draft that.
He's going up
high
against the Niners this week, Thursday Night Football. Do you start him or do you sit him?
Shoo. I'm probably gonna. I'm still gonna roll him out. I think. I mean, he still has that upside. We've seen the upside. The matchup's not great, but It all depends on who you got. If you got someone like Carl Granderson, if you're choosing between him or Carl Granderson, I mean, that's a tough call. I might go with Granderson at this point. But yeah, I still feel good about Kayvon. Just a slow start. It happens. It happens every single year.
Yeah, I think if you believed in him and thought the breakout was going to happen this year, you probably just got to roll with them. But to Adam's point, it definitely depends on the options you have. And defensive end is just the edge rusher position is just so tough because like I said, it's really feast or famine out there depending on if you get a sack or not.
Unless you got the waiver darling probably of Dennis Gardick. I mean, this guy has come out of nowhere. I don't know how much he was rostered on other teams, but man, this guy doesn't look like he's slowing down.
No, he was available in pretty much like every dynasty league I'm in. And those are deep rosters.
Same here.
Where you have like 50 players or whatever on them, and yeah, I was able to get him in basically all those, but. That's been a fun story. Dennis Gardeck, man, he's done this before. In 2020, he put up like 7.5 sacks on like 94 pass rush snaps. So I mean, we've seen flashes of him be this uber efficient sack artist. So I'm rooting for him, man. I mean, they don't have a lot of talent there in Arizona. I mean, he should continue to get an opportunity. It's just really him and Zaven Collins, and a lot of these young. Second and third round guys. So yeah, I like Gardeck.
So my dud of week 2 here, I'm going to go with linebacker Shaq Leonard. Just recorded 3 tackles with a 71.4 snap share percentage. 90% of his snaps are coming on first and second downs, and he's giving way to linebacker EJ Speed for third and fourth downs. At this point, I'm concerned about Shaq Leonard. Not only is he coming off the injury, but he's out there for the snaps, but now he's going just the early snaps and, giving way for the pass coverage because he hasn't been good. In passing situations, he's actually allowed a passer rating of 95 thus far. And EJ Speed in this past week actually out-tackled him on fewer snap opportunities as well.
I love this call right here. And, I mean, I guess we can go ahead and I don't know. I don't want to step on the show here, but I mean, this really brings me to my next point here with EJ Speed. And I'm with you, man. I think Shaq Leonard. I mean, we've seen the snaps dip from 86 to 71%. We know about all the health issues that he's had in his career. It just feels like a matter of time, right, until something happens. He gets hurt, or he just maybe gets benched in favor of EJ Speed. Because Shaq Leonard he's just not the same player he was. He's no longer the maniac. He's basically just getting tackles now. He's not getting in the backfield, not getting those big plays that made him the reason why we loved him. So yeah, EJ Speed, I'm all about him. I guess we'll get to him in just a moment.
Yeah, so when it comes to Shaq Leonard, I think we're great call out by you, Joe, first off. Second off, we're talking about dangerous territory when it comes to Shaq Leonard. And what I mean by that is I do not think he will be a Colt next year. I think that this team is moving on from him. He signed a 5-year deal, almost close to $100 million. And he has been injured for most of it since getting the new contract. And looking at his contract, I was curious. He's still relatively young. I mean, he's 28 years old. Linebackers can play, pretty late into their career. But next year, his cap hit is a whopping $20 million. And if they do a post-June 1 cut on him, we're talking about them saving $16 million and having to be a $4 million dead cap hit that year and $4 million next year. So he's done. It's Shane Steichen's the coach. It's a completely new coach change. You're seeing, like you said, EJ Speed stepping up, as well as, man, what's his name? Why can't I know? I should know.
Zaire Franklin.
There you go. Thank you.
He looks awesome, by the way. He is such a stud. I think he's got 30 tackles through the first 2 weeks. Just
yeah. Well, we saw what Zaire Franklin did last season. And he is just, the question was when Shaq Leonard comes back, what's going to happen?
Yep.
And he has not left his foot off the gas.
Yep.
So Zaire Franklin is here to stay. I don't know about EJ Speed long term, but what it's telling me though is it's indicative that Shaq Leonard, I think, is gone. And the thing with linebackers is, I mean, this is a whole different topic that we can talk about here. Linebackers are scary because all of a sudden they can just hit a cliff. I mean, these guys could be really good. I mean, when you've got like guys who are like, there are some that are like alpha linebackers that stay for a very long time, but you got guys like Joe Schobert, right? These guys were good, and all of a sudden, cliff gone. Like we could be talking Shaq Leonard just hitting a cliff, and he is just not relevant anymore. He can't even make a roster. I don't know that for sure, but it's looking bleak.
Well, look at Miles Jack. I mean, he was 28 this past season when he retired. I mean, he was a dominant player. Then goes to Steelers for 1 year. Thought another year that he gets cut and just decides to retire. So
Blake Martinez, Deion Jones, Jalen Smith happens literally all the time. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, they fall off quickly. It's very similar to the running backs. When they're done, they're done.
Absolutely. But I mean, you do have some guys who just defy the odds. I mean, you've got players like Bobby Wagner. He's still playing at a high clip. You've got Demario Davis. He's been a renaissance man, but, he's continued to play well. I think Roquan Smith probably is going to fit into that category. So you do have these linebackers that can kind of defy the odds and continue to be relevant very late in their career. But then you have those list of guys who are great lists up right off the top of your head. That was impressive. I was trying to get that in my memory bank, and I couldn't go back that far. But all those guys are exactly my point. It's very concerning for Shaq Leonard.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So my dud is a scary dud. I don't know if I should be hitting the panic button or not, but we're going to find out. But it's Aaron Donald. By now we know that Aaron Donald is one of the best players on defense in the NFL, arguably one of the best players, period. The Rams team, is just infused with young talent. Donald is the wily veteran left there. The concerning part is that Aaron Donald played a total of 54 snaps, which was tied for 10th most by interior defensive linemen, but he did absolutely nothing besides a QB hit. PFF graded him at a 73, which was 27th amongst interior defensive linemen. And in his first game, he wasn't all that great either, having a half a sack with 4 total tackles and a QB hit. Obviously, you had the whole Geno Smith thing that people want to talk about. But, other than that, it's not the Aaron Donald that we know. He's 32 years old. He's going to be turning 33 by the end of the season. I mean, you do have players like Cam Hayward who, again, defy the odds, plays really good. We're talking about Aaron Donald as a Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it. I don't know. Is this early signs of regression, or is this just one of those things that, defensive players can be feast or famine, and maybe we just haven't seen the feast yet?
Yeah, I wouldn't panic on Aaron Donald just yet. He is probably getting all the attention, though. I mean, it is a bit of a concern, I guess, that would continue. But I just feel like it's hard to bet against Aaron Donald, right? And I would have a hard time benching him. I mean, same thing. Just I know the upside. I've seen it for the past decade. I just still believe that it's going to be okay with him. And I think, he still is grading pretty well and all that stuff, right? I'm going to pull his stuff up here.
He's grading, I guess, not elite grades that he were accustomed to seeing from him. They're good. So not to say he's completely fall off the wagon wheel, but he maybe, he's been like unicorn when it comes to interior defensive linemen.
Sure. He does have 7 pressures on 57 pass rush attempts, so that's a okay pressure rate. But yeah, you're right. 72.4 overall PFF grade, 81 pass rush grade. And the help is, I think, the worst maybe of his career.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's who is the next best defender on that team? Is it the rookie Byron Young? Is it Ernest Jones? There's not a lot of proven players there around Aaron Donald. So, we'll see. I mean, one thing that that does give me some optimism about Aaron Donald is that team feels a little brighter than it did before the season started. Right? I thought that team was going to be the worst team in the NFL. So, um, so I just like the momentum that we've seen the first 2 weeks. I mean, that's been a pretty fun offense, a lot of fun storylines coming out of there. So if they can continue that and maintain that momentum, man, I wouldn't be surprised if we could see this defense start clicking a little bit. Remember, it is a lot of young guys, so maybe they just need to get some reps and get work through some things, and then maybe they start to gel at some point later in the season. But I'm not out on Aaron Donald. I still can't take him out of my lineup. I mean, the only way I'm taking him out of my lineup is like if my other two defensive tackles are Quinnen Williams and Jeffrey Simmons, or Chris Jones. Maybe if I have those three. Otherwise, I'm keeping him in. I don't care. It's Aaron Donald.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you definitely have to start him. I agree. I just think from a dynasty standpoint, the retirement was looming large. I honestly don't even understand why he came back. Joe, you and I talk about this all the time. I mean, we thought the Rams were going to be absolutely, like you, Adam, we thought they were going to be absolutely trash. Why would he and McVay and Stafford want to come back to this skeleton crew team? But they've shown a lot of moxie. They've been better than advertised. So maybe I don't know, but it just I don't know. Does he retire next year? What value do you have? He's just kind of a mystery a little bit.
Yeah, I see. I don't think he does. I think he's got a big contract that he can play out, right? And I mean, it's one of the biggest contracts in the NFL. So I think that he's like a really interesting potential like trade target for a contender. If this does go south for the Rams, I mean, I think he could still play for another 3-4 years and still be elite. He is like what 32, 33.
Yeah.
I mean, Cam
He'll be
Hayward's
33.
Like
yeah.
Yeah. Cam Hayward's 34. We've seen Calais Campbell, he's still playing. I think he's like 36, 37. So, I mean, I'm not really worried about that with Aaron Donald. And plus, if he does get traded, he's going to be in a better situation. It's not going to be worse than there with the Rams. So, yeah, I think he might be a sneaky little dynasty buy. Am I saying go out and send a first for Aaron Donald? No. But if you can get him for a third, I think that's where you start. You try and if you're a contender, of course, if you feel like you're in a window these next 2 or 3 years, if you can go get him for multiple thirds or try a single third at first. But I think I'd be willing to pay like a second, like if push came to shove, just because if he does return to form, I mean, you got a potential cheat code there at defensive tackle.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't panic on him just yet, Steve. But this was kind of, we talked about this. This was kind of the concern, right? Just the fact that he was used to this great supporting cast and the edge rushers he had to draw attention off of him as well. It was harder to double team him and focus on him. And now nobody really knows names of the players on the Rams defense, and they can just key on Donald. But 49ers, they have a pretty good offensive line. It was a pretty tough matchup. I think facing some weaker offensive lines, he'll perform better.
Well, he's got Cincinnati on Monday night, so
there you go.
It might be no Joe Burrow. So I mean, we'll have to see. He should show up there. If he doesn't show up there, then maybe the concern gets a little bit stronger. But I still think it. I hear you totally, Adam. I think he could definitely be a dynasty buy.
Yeah, I mean, in his defense, it was what? It was who did he play last week? San Fran.
Yeah.
And first week was Seattle.
Yep.
So, I mean, two teams that are very familiar with Aaron Donald and how to, maybe game plan against him. So that is a really tough start for Donald. But, yeah, I mean, with those tough starts, I mean, that creates buy windows. So.
Well, and we know he has bad blood with Cincinnati. So that's notorious when he took off his helmet and walloped somebody in training camp. So
that's true. That team's a mess, too. I mean, Burrow's re-aggravated the calf. Is he going to even play this week?
It's up in the air.
Yeah, that's not a good situation. Their season's very close to swirling down the toilet.
So heading over to week 3 predictions, what are your guys' front office pros IDP tip of the week?
My advice for the week, pick up EJ Speed. This dude is balling, and the snaps keep creeping up even without a Shaq Leonard injury. In week 1, he put up 5 tackles on 41% of the snaps. In week 2, he put up 6 tackles, 1 sack on 54% of the snaps, which worked out to 21.4 points in Big 3 scoring. His overall PFF grade of 82.3 ranks 12th among linebackers. In 2022, he finished first in points per snaps and had 63 tackles on just 314 snaps, which works out to a ridiculous 20% tackle rate. So dude is extremely efficient when he's out there and has a knack for making plays. He is currently the LB11 despite playing just 74 snaps. And like I mentioned earlier, Shaq Leonard has seen his snaps decline the last 2 weeks, 86% in week 1, 71% in week 2. So I don't know, boys. I mean, EJ Speed is doing a lot with his opportunity. He's grading very well. They brought this guy back for a reason. Like you mentioned earlier, I think Shaq Leonard is definitely getting cut this offseason. So, I mean, the 2 linebackers of the future there that are under contract are Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed. So Shaq Leonard looks like a shell of himself. He doesn't look like the same Shaq Leonard anymore. He doesn't look like Darius Leonard anymore, I guess I should say. So, I mean, I think we're going to see EJ Speed in a large role at some point, whether it be injury or they just straight up start playing EJ Speed as that LB2 that gets, at least 80% of the snaps each week. But either way, I think it's coming at some point. I think you got to get in front of it now, because if he does get that chance, EJ Speed is a league-winning type linebacker. Wow.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think, it's a good time to go get him, like you said, get out in front of it. Because if, it ends up happening where, Shaq Leonard's officially benched and EJ Speed is, the starting linebacker opposite of Zaire Franklin, you're going to have a bunch of people to compete with. So get out in front of it and go ahead and pick him up this week.
You already do. I mean, you already do. I put out a tweet. It was Friday, screenshotting myself picking him up in a league and saying it feels like a good time to stash EJ Speed, because it is. If he goes off, you're right. You're going to have more competition. You're going to have more people just aware or thinking about this situation and what could happen if Shaq Leonard were to miss time or get benched. So, you got to kind of get in front of these things early these days. Everyone's sharp. I mean, everyone's constantly on Twitter. Everyone's got notifications on. Like, you got to get ahead of some of these situations and try your best to see the future. And so that's what we're doing here with EJ Speed. I think his time's going to come. You want him on your roster when it does.
You made my eyebrows raised when you said that he could be a league winner. I think you were also surprised too. I think he's definitely worth a roster spot, no question about it. I think he definitely has value add, but for all the reasons that we've talked about. I think Zaire Franklin, I think it'd be hard pressed to see them both succeed on a top level. I think Franklin is the guy, but I definitely think he's worth picking up.
Hey, man, they're both top 12 right now, and EJ Speed's not even getting 50% of the snaps. So,
yeah, that's a good point, and make a compelling case.
And like I mentioned, man, EJ Speed has been nothing but efficient every time he's out there. Like, that 20% tackle rate last year is ridiculous, and then it's like 15% this year. So, I mean, it's still really, really good, still way above league average. So, yeah, I like EJ Speed quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Shaq Leonard's tackle efficiency percentage this past week was 5%. So,
yeah, I mean, dude's not even doing that anymore, right? I mean, it's like, I think his time is coming to an end. I mean, he's just not the same player. If you search his name in Twitter while the culture playing, like you'll see a bunch of negative tweets about the guy. So, writing's on the wall. Go get EJ Speed right now.
So my IDP tip of the week here for this week is going to be Bradley Chubb. I think he builds off his performance last week against the Patriots, where he had 7 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And I think he's got a great opportunity to get another sack and force a fumble against Russell Wilson, who seems to not be able to hang on to the ball these days. And Chubb is familiarity with the Fangio defense back when his time in Denver. He said on the Jim Rome show that the Fangio defense is simple and easy to learn, and it lets the defensive ends play freely and wreak havoc in the backfield. And I could definitely see that this week against the Broncos.
Yeah, it's a revenge game for Bradley Chubb. I love it. Bradley Chubb's awesome, dude. He was one of those guys that was kind of getting disrespected.
I was one of those people.
Oh,
Broncos fan that just wasn't ever impressive. He had the great rookie year in 2018 under Fangio. He had the 12.5 sacks, and it was just like he couldn't ever get back to those numbers again.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. If you're a Broncos fan, yeah, I could understand you being frustrated. But you guys got a great return for him. I mean, you guys got a first-round pick for him and didn't have to pay him $100 million or whatever. So.
Yep.
It worked out fine. No need to be bitter about Chubb anymore. It's a good fresh start for everybody, I think.
I'm not bitter about him anymore. I was talking back to disappointing on the days before he got traded. So
understand, but yeah, I mean Bradley Chubb, he's in a great situation there. Love that he's reunited with Fangio, of course. Everything like you mentioned, being able to play freely. But I mean, great supporting cast. Christian Wilkins, one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Jalen Phillips, the God, we know all about him. Hopefully, he gets back to full health and can be out there with him this next week. But yeah, man, Bradley Chubb, dude, I think he was one of my little mini flag plants on the on our flag plant episode. I said he's going to return to double-digit sacks this year. So great start. I think we're going to see it. I mean, I really do. I think that 10 may be a little too low. We could see, maybe 16, maybe 17. Just kidding.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Hold on a second. I got to fall over my chair for a second. Hold on. I don't know if we could stay healthy for the entire year, to be honest with you guys.
True.
I definitely am less bullish than you are. You guys, well, actually, you're not. Well, I guess you're bullish for next week for the revenge game, which Bradley Chubb has a lot to show off against your Denver Broncos, Joe. But I mean, they've got a decent offensive line. I mean, you got Garrett Bowles. You got
did you see how many sacks we let up against the Commanders? I believe it was 7.
Boy.
You want to talk about offensive line play? I mean, they were able to block the Commanders for one half.
Well, I mean, Jalen Phillips. The thing is, he did not play last week. If he plays this week? I think it could be really bad. If not,
And Ginkle looks like a problem too, though. He played well against the Patriots as well. So plus, Adam mentioned the guys that got up front, with Sealer and Wilkinson up front,
Okay, it's not looking good, Joe. Just prepare yourself.
Hey, I'm already planning on being out. Don't worry.
So my IDP pro tip of the week is I'm going to be going to the forgotten man here. I think Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore could both end up having an interception next Sunday. The Dallas Cowboys are ranked number 1 in coverage in the NFL, according to PFF, and number 2 in pass rush grades. Joshua Dobbs has been, okay for Arizona, better than people thought, at least more than I thought. He hasn't thrown an interception yet, but I believe that based on when he played with the Giants and the Commanders, they are just not at the caliber that the Cowboys are. Depending on your league settings, some leagues don't force you to play corners, and many times it's feast or famine for them, whether or not they get interception. But I expect a big week from either one of them, possibly. So if you have them, I think it'd be worthwhile to start them in your flex. If you're starting corners, you're probably starting them anyways. But I like both of them this week.
It's a good call. I like it as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. I believe both of them should have had a pick last week. Gilmore, I think, dropped one against Zach Wilson, so wouldn't surprise me at all. And the defensive line there complements the corners that they have perfectly.
Well, and the thing too, Josh Dobbs, I mean, he's thrown, I think both games, he threw over 30 attempts in the game. So it's not like it'd be one thing if he was throwing like 15 times a game or, 20 times a game, if it was like Desmond Ridder or something like that, they just don't throw the ball, but he's throwing it at a decent clip. I mean, he's not throwing like 50 attempts, but enough attempts that I think there could be some damage done. And they're going to be behind, I expect. Yeah. So they're going to have to throw even more if they want to win the game. I mean, that's a question in and of itself if they want to win, but we'll find out.
They're playing so far like they want to win.
Yeah, they're one of those surprising teams too, right? Like they were one of those teams that we thought were just going to be god awful, but they've been okay. I mean, they've been hanging in these games. They almost they should have beat the Giants. They were in that week 1 game with what was it, the Commanders. So
that's true. They kept it tight both games.
But yeah, that's a good call. That Dallas defense is so good, and they can force a ton of mistakes, and those would be 2 candidates to get the picks, no doubt.
So that does it for our recap from week 2. We gave you our studs, our duds, and then a preview for week 3, giving you our tips to help you succeed. Before we sign off, Adam, thanks again for coming on. Where can others find your great work?
Thank you guys for having me on. You can find my work over at the IDPshow.com. I am on Twitter or X at AdamIDP. And that's really it. Just come check me out. You can find all of our stuff there. We're on the socials. We're pretty active on it. Reach out if you ever have any questions regarding IDP or anything else. Just come say hey.
And if you like IDP, we highly recommend that you watch or listen to the IDP show. Great content. Adam is one of the guys there. Couldn't recommend it more. So thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week. And until next time.